welcome everyone to this second session of the mental health seminar series from our lovely Chetna Ben, who has kindly agreed to give a talk on a specific topic. That topic is about British Indian identity that I think we can all relate to. But Chetna Ben will go over some house rules, but just wanted to say thank you for joining and taking the time out, first of all, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end, but hopefully you'll find this session really informative. So I'll hand it over to yourself.
Thank you. Right, let's just hope I can get this working. There we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again for the Sri Brajapati Association for inviting me back to do this presentation. I feel really honoured to come back and do this. So my name is Chetna Mistry. I am a registered mental health nurse and a systemic family practitioner, and I've also got a master's in nursing. So I've been a nurse for over 23 years now. Worked in lots of different settings within like inpatient, in hospital, in the community with children, done some therapeutic work as well. So yeah, and I'm still practicing within the NHS at the moment. So just some housekeeping that I always like to go through when I start a session, and that's, I'd like to think that some of the things that we talk about can be quite emotional or we might have conflicting views. So I'd like to just say to everybody that, let's respect each other and respect and listen to each other. And, we've all got different views, but that's okay. And let's not judge anybody. And whatever we talk about, keep it confidential. We don't want people going out of the session and gossiping, because there might be some sensitive things that people are talking about. And just a final note, you're responsible for your own behaviour. And so if you are not feeling great, get some advice, get some support. So again, this can evoke some emotions that might be difficult for you. Okay, here we go. So I thought, first of all, let's start right from the beginning. What do we mean by being British Asians? So I'm afraid the only definition I was managed to get that I was quite happy with, it was from Wikipedia, which says that British Indians are citizens of the United Kingdom whose ancestral roots are from India. So we can all relate to that, and that makes sense to us. So that's what we mean when we use the term British Indian. So when we're talking about that, you already see in the term. So we've got the British side of us, which means we're living in the United Kingdom, so we're exposed to different things, and we've got our Indian roots, which come with a lot of other different ideologies, ways of thinking, ways of living. So you can see some of the challenges it may bring and some of the benefits it may bring as well. So I thought I'm going to start off by talking about what is a traditional Indian family. So we're talking about, the grassroots of back in the day, what traditional Indian families consisted of. So just trying to have a skipped one. No. So in a traditional Indian society, importance is placed on social goals. Sorry, I thought I heard something. I'll start again. Indian society places importance on social goals over individual goals. So, we'll look out for the society. Decisions are made for the best interest of the society as opposed to the individual. And it promotes interdependency. So, we rely on each other. So it encourages us to rely on each other to survive. And being individual isn't encouraged, and in traditional families 3 to 4 generations live together. So some of you may be experienced this, may have experienced this already, or live like this, or have seen family members that live in a way where you've got 3 or 4 generations living together. And everybody within the family have different roles and different functions within that household. So I read this interesting paper by Mulati in 1995 from the Journal of Comparative Family Studies, and she sort of highlights how a traditional family is organized. She talks about 3 to 4 generations living together, which, you know, can consist of things like people like your grandparents, your parents, your uncles, aunties, nieces, nephews, all together, and they all have you know, share the same kitchen, have the same living area, and the expenses for that household are from a common pot of money. So everybody contributes to this pot of money, and it's then used to run the household. So majority of the families follow patriarchal ideas. So what we mean by that is that the men are in control, and they are the patrilineal, they follow the patrilineal ideology of descent through the male line. So that, you know, that rule is that generations are followed on the dad's side. So, you know, we see this in our own culture and families where kakas, foibas are more sort of, are given priority over the maternal side. And also, you know, we often see girls moving in to live with their in-laws, and very few the other way around of coming in to live with the girl's family. So, and the married couple live with the husband's family, and girls get married and leave the home. So these are some of the ideologies that traditional Indian families follow. I do, you know, recognize that people have probably moved on from this, but we're talking about traditional, so just bear that in mind. I just want you to remember that when I'm talking. And females are expected to take a passive position to males and prioritize the male's needs over theirs. So they're sort of you know, expected to be subservient to males, to put their needs behind the males and elders in the family. And this but, you know, on the other hand, males are expected to earn the money and provide security for the family, and, you know, like widows and never married adults and disabled, and they assist members, you know, when family members that are unemployed, so they all club together and support. So there's very distinct roles, as we can see, for males and females, and you know, where they sit in almost like a hierarchy. And, you know, and males are there to provide security to women and children, along with everyone else. So that's their main role. The eldest male is usually the head of the family, and they make most of the important decisions, make the rules, and usually whatever they say goes. The eldest male is usually the head of the family as well. And the family is expected to support and take care of each other. Again, this is something we've probably all seen and are seeing in today's society, but it might just be structured and organised slightly differently. And the joint family has always been the preferred type of family in Indian culture. So you can see here, there's lots of like hierarchy rules that are part of, you know, the way that traditional families are organised. So, like I said, already just mentioned, you know, part of within this organisation, you've got hierarchies, you know, you've got the head of the family, which might be the paternal grandfather. Then you've got, you know, the eldest son potentially, and then all the males, and then you may have a matriarch in the family as well, which might be the grandmother, and then you've got the pecking order. You know, you see that. You know, I'm sure all you have to do is watch some of these Indian serials, and you will see how these hierarchies work. You know, even within the sons, you've got hierarchies. Within the females in the family, you've got hierarchies with, you know, the mother-in-law being at the top, and the eldest daughter-in-law, the Chetna at the top and the youngest nanny at the bottom, and then and then there's a positioning where the nuns go, the sister-in-law. So you can see how it's all set up, and then each family has their own values and beliefs. And in these families of values and beliefs, they talk about, they have rules of how to behave and communicate with each other within the family, what you can say to who, and also about how special occasions are celebrated, along with, special occasions, religious functions, how pujas are carried out. So all this, is what makes a traditional Indian family, that's how they're organized, or they were organized, because I do recognize that we don't all live like this. So also within the family, we talk about there being different types of systems. If we look at the hierarchy, the values, the rules, it differs. We have rules and subsections within the family. So like we spoke of, you've got the gender differences, you've got age differences, you've got relationship differences within the family. But then when you move outside of that, you've got all these rules of how to interact with those who you live with, which are, in the traditional sense, your paternal side of the family, or for the girls, it'll be their in-laws, and for the boys, it will be their parents and brothers and their sister-in-laws, and the rules of how to communicate with them. But then when you then start introducing other extended families, so you've got the mother's side of the family, so it might be your mother's brothers and sisters, your mamas, your masses and massas, and that side of the family, again, the way of interacting can be very different. Same with the daughter-in-laws, they've got their sisters, their mum and dad, and their side of the family, and their kakas and foibas, and and how the family interacts with that side of the family is very different to how the family unit. And then we can extend out to the community of the same caste, and we do. I know, we'd like to think that the caste system doesn't exist, but it does. But, people are like, we've got Prajapati Association. So, how do people communicate with Prajapatis? There's a different way of interacting, and, what you can and can't say with them, because, people might get things, people might not. So, there's rules and regulations around that. And so you can already see there's already a hierarchy of what you can say to whom. Then you've got people that are Hindu, Gujarati, Indian, however you want to put it, from a different caste or a community. And that, again, you have a different set of rules and how to interact. And then you have everyone else, how you interact and what's accepted and what isn't, when you then step outside of the community and perhaps interact with the host community and everyone else out there. So, sorry, I don't want to see this. IT issues. So, family rules. These, as I've already mentioned, can include how to communicate and interact in the household and in the family. So, like as mentioned, various families with various family members, what you can say to who, how do you interact with Indian community and non-Indian community, and how you conduct yourself outside the home. Things like, what you wear can be really important as well, and what you can and can't do based on your gender as well. These can be part of your family, the family rules and the rules that the family is run and organized by. So, who does what in the home, who does the washing up, who takes the bins out, who you know, has a remote on the hand, and you know, that's making a bit of a light of, you know, being a bit lighthearted there. But you know, so things that are classified like men and women's work, there's very distinct roles, and sometimes if people do the other gender's work, they can be ridiculed for it. So for example, a man might go into the kitchen and start washing up, and their elders may turn around and say, what are you doing in there? It's not your role. What do you think? You know, you're less of a man as a result. And you know, the other way around as well. So when women do want to go out to work, want to study, want to, you know, have, you know, high-powered job or successful in their career, which might mean that they don't you know, get as much time to cook or spend time in the home, they'll be ridiculed, say, you know, you're not good enough, you shouldn't be doing this, it's wrong. And you can see how that might create challenges within relationships and within oneself. And you know, they have also rules around how to practice religion, you know, things like what gods to believe in. And I know some households have like gulderis, I've heard of that before, you know, so that what particular god is important for your household, what rituals are important in your household, and what sort of pujas are done, and when and how are they conducted as well. So again, it's that tradition versus religion sort of debate as well, and what days to fast, what days you can and cannot eat meat. So there's lots of customs and rituals around religion and traditional practices as well. And there's also rules around who you can and can't marry. You know, do they have to be Indian? Do you have to be a certain religion, a different caste? Do they have to be, you know, if you don't marry the eldest child, daughter doesn't marry somebody, then what's the impact going to be on the eligibility of the younger siblings? So, you know, they're the sorts of rules that do, you know, part of the family. So, you know, and also education plays a big part as well, in terms of marrying. You know, you often men won't be looked upon for a man to marry a woman that's more educated than them. It's all right the other way around, so that can be looked upon. So there might be, you know, specific rules of, you know, when we all know the dating game, the traditional Indian dating game, people will ask, you know, what's your marriage, what's your education level, how far are you educated up to, and sometimes that can determine whether you're a suitor or not. Can determine, you know, who you have friendships with and to what depth. So you could think about, you know, this, you might have your parents or somebody in a traditional household telling you you can talk to them and interact with them outside the home, but you can't bring them home. And you know, you can be friends with them, but they can't be your best friend because their influence will rub off on you, and then you'll mugrijai sort of thing, you'll spoil. It also talks about, you know, rules around the types of relationships you have, you know, things like same-sex relationships and identifying as a different gender to what you're born with as well. That can be really difficult and maybe not accepted or challenging for families. Around things around relationships around LGBTQ, cohabiting and living together and having children out of wedlock as well. So there's lots of different things around rules around relationships as well, and what employment is and education is acceptable. You know, you've got to be a doctor or an engineer. You can't go into arts or be a sports because that's not respectable. So, you know, you might be discouraged from music and being a footballer because it's considered a waste of time. So you're probably encouraged to just study, and that being educated to at least a degree, if not a master's. So what can happen if one doesn't follow the family rules? So the family can start destabilizing, so that can then, as a result of that, cause difficult relationships in the family with both the immediate family and the extended family, because if there is somebody that agrees with the person that's broken the rules or support them, that can then create friction with other members of the family, and they might say, well, you know, you don't respect us because you're going with the person that's broken the rules. So you can see how it can really destabilize family and cause conflict in relationships. It can lead the person who has not followed the rules to feel quite abandoned and isolated. And even they may even be ostracized from the family and be told to get out and never to speak to them again. And then it can create tensions among family members, like I said, due to conflicting views and perspectives. You know, in turn, it contributes to relationship difficulties. And, you know, people in the same household may not even talk to each other, or you might not get invited to family functions as an individual or as a family because people don't agree with your way of life. And it can split families up if you haven't followed the rules as well. So this person who's not followed the rules may not be accepted in the family, and it can cause tensions as well. So, you know, you might remember from previous presentations that I've done that, you know, all these things affect how you feel. So what we want to think about is, I want to go on to think about how these experiences affect your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So when we have a thought, or I think let's start from behavior actually. When something happens, it affects our thoughts, and then that can affect feelings. You know, let's take the example of your child has come out as gay. You know, the parents think, oh my goodness, hi, you know, that's really shameful. They're the thoughts that the parent, you know, so that's what's happened, that in that interaction your child has told you. And then in terms of your thoughts, you're thinking, this is very shameful, what are people going to think? You know, this is, I don't agree with this. And then that can make you feel sad, angry, upset. And then in return, in response to that, you might start shouting and swearing at your child, or saying that's not acceptable, saying, right, okay, I'm going to get you married off. These are all things that we've heard before. So that could be your response and your behavior to that. So let's think about some of the emotions you might feel as a result. You might be feeling scared because you know, this goes for not just a person that has broken the rules, and same with the thoughts, feelings, and behavior. It's not just the person that's broken the rules, but the parents as well. So we need to think about, you know, the interaction equals two people. So both could be feeling fear, embarrassment, hate, anger, sad, really anxious, feeling quite shameful, guilty, confusion, and could feel disgust as well. So, you know, I think it's really important to recognize that these sorts of interactions do sort of trigger emotions within you. So as a result of having these feelings, you may think, you know, I don't fit in anywhere. So that's what the person that's broken the rule may be thinking. And parents might be thinking, we lack something in our parenting, which is why my child has turned out this way or has done something. What are the community, what are people going to think? What are the family going to think? People are going to start talking about us. I don't know what to do for the best. You know, whatever I do, someone will be upset. So, you know, people can have really mixed emotions and feel really quite stuck. I don't agree with that way of thinking. My parents, you know, don't care about me. My parents don't understand me. So these are the sorts of thoughts that might be going through. Examples of some of the thoughts, you know, it's not exhaustive, but these are some of. So in response to that, what might we do? We might just stop going out. I don't want to see anybody, because people are going to, in your head, people are going to be talking about you. People are going to say, what sort of parent is are they that their child has turned out that way, or their child has got spoiled? And family members might not talk to each other. Like we said, it can cause, people can have such strong views that they said, actually, I really don't agree with that. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not happy with that. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Could be emotional blackmail, either party. If you don't do this, I'm going to do that. Classical, oh, I'm going to hurt myself if you don't give me what I want, sort of thing. That's sort of emotional blackmail. That's just an example. And people might become quite physical, cause physical and psychological abuse. They might start hitting the person that's broken the rule, try to lock them away and say, right, I'm going to try and get you married off somewhere now, I don't want this behavior. We've heard these things, and we've heard stories like this in the community before. And they might place restrictions on the party that's breaking the rule and say, right, you're not going out now, you're going to be dropped off at school and I'm going to pick you up, and that's it. And it could cause like physical fighting and arguing. So, and I think it's really important that we start thinking about what we can and can't control in these interactions. What we can control are what we say, our attitudes, how we are towards other people, what we do, our ideas, the effort we put in to maybe challenge some of the things that might be difficult for us, the decisions that we make. We can, control our body language. We can control our thoughts in terms of recognizing that we might have automatic thoughts, but we can recognize what they are. And our feelings, I think being able to stay in tune with your feelings, you can then recognize that actually I'm feeling like this because somebody said something that I don't like. So you can then decide whether you want to then react in a way that is aggressive or not. And what you can't control is other people's actions, their feelings, what they say and how they say it, what other people do. We can't control that. What other people's reactions, body language, other people's attitudes, thoughts, other people's mistakes and ideas. We have no control over that. And I think we need to remember that, because especially in a traditional Indian family where there is that, promotion of interdependency, there's almost like we can have control over how somebody feels and behaves, which can lead to abusive relationships as well. And I think we need to be mindful that actually we can't stop other people. There's certain things that are within our sphere of control and those things that we can't do. So how can we manage how all this makes us feel? So we need to accept, okay, we might not like what it is that is being said or the rule that's being broken, but just accept it. And you might not like the fact that your parents don't agree with your way of life, and they never will. And sometimes you have to agree to disagree. And it's important to try and understand why you're feeling how you're feeling. So that understanding of knowing somebody said something to me that's upset me because actually I feel that's wrong. So it's wrong for me, but it might not be wrong for that other person. Talk to each other, have it out in the open. Often subjects are a taboo, so we brush it under the carpet, and that creates another difficulty and a problem in itself. So being open and talking about these things, and well done to Sri Prajapati Associations for allowing me and inviting me to come back to facilitate this session, because we need to be talking about these things. And if we talk about things, we can see different perspectives, try and see them from different views and different ideas, things that we might not think about. So that can be really quite helpful. And, can both parties compromise as well? So what can we do to try and meet in the middle? And I think it's really important in order for both, the parents and the child to come to meet in the middle, or even slightly about 0.5 towards the middle, you know, how much can each give and take. It's important for each other to understand each other's perspectives. And now I'm not just saying that the parents need to understand the child, but the child needs to understand the parent and think about where are they coming from in terms of why are my parents reacting the way they are. And then the parents need to try and understand, why is my child responding the way they are? So what you can do to look after your mental well-being, because, you know, all this is quite tough emotionally. So some of the things you can do to look after yourself are, when things are really difficult, don't hit the bottle. Don't go for that shot of whiskey or a night out where you're going to get absolutely wasted. Try and avoid alcohol, you know, or any drugs or any excessive caffeine, because it, you know, that will increase your anxiety. Try to do some mindfulness practice to sort of just stay in the here and now. Relaxation is helpful. Talk to somebody that you feel comfortable talking to. You know, talk about your difficulties, talk about anything. Engage in activities that interest you. You know, your hobbies and interests. It might be that you like watching cricket, it might be that you like watching football or going out for a walk. So do something, you know, go for a swim, whatever it is that you like doing. Try and see things from a different perspective. That might, you know, that will help to just broaden your horizon a bit. Exercise, that's really important. You know, exercise releases your natural adrenaline and happy hormones, so that can be helpful. Have a healthy diet, because it can just help you feel better. If you vet well, you feel better and you don't feel as sluggish and you don't feel as low. Meet up with friends and family. You know, these times when things are difficult, these are, you know, for whoever, reach out to people, reach out to your friends and people you can talk to, whether it be a parent that has you know, heard something from a child they're not very happy about. Maybe, you know, moms and dads can go out with some friends and go for a meal and talk about things, or just have them round for a drink, you know, a cup of tea or something, and just say, this is what we're going, what do you think? And just listening to different perspectives is really helpful. And the same with the person that's broken the rule. Perhaps they could go out with some friends and family and just have a discussion and see if that helps. Again, that goes with socializing. Do something for yourself, you know, something you enjoy doing to help make you feel better. And get enough sleep. You'll have seen my sleep presentation previously. Revisit that, about good sleep hygiene. So you'll be pleased to know that's the end of me talking. So if anybody's got any questions, I'll stop sharing now. Feedback, please.
I think we've got a really good question in the chat from Mistry. And Zena, if you'd like to unmute for a discussion as well, we can do. But Zena's asked, do we know where the attitudes of being concerned about what others say or think stems from? Like, where do we think?
That's a really good question, Zena. I don't know whether a lot of it is to do with that ideology of promoting interdependence, as you know, like that. If you think back, the reason why I brought the example, can we put your camera on, Zena? I feel like I'm not talking to anybody. If you're comfortable with that, if not, that's fine. So that, you know, the reason why I put that traditional family example, and I stripped it right back to probably generations and generations before we were even born, and my parents were really not even born, was that's where our ideologies and traditions have come from. So you can see how that's filtered down. So I think that's where I think it stems from, and that's why we still have these attitudes that we're bothered that what people say about us. Does that answer your question, Zena? Put a thumbs up or a comment to let me know if it has. Great, thank you. Anyone else wants to?
think Gantibai from Ashton has a question. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Chetna Ben, for this presentation. You touched at great length our institution of family union and so on. But one of the things which have been really concerned to me is the identity. You have no mention about British Indian identity as such. As you very well know, that in the last census, the government advised that if you are Indian, then you should put British, Indian, and Hindu in the classification as such. So there should be that awareness among our Indian community that we are Indians and we are Hindus, and we should maintain that identity as such, because there is no awareness in this liberalized Western world. We are so much engrossed in other things, and we then we don't accept other things as such. So it is important that we identify our identity.
Thanks for that. I think I was asked to present today on some of the challenges that families face, which is why the focus was the way that it was. Uncle, so
yeah,
but I
fine.
completely take your point on that as well. So thank you for sharing. But yeah, that makes complete sense.
Because maintaining our culture is very, very important. As I know there are.
Yeah, and I think that's a discussion in itself, isn't it? I think
that's right.
Cultural and maintaining our cultural identity, customs. That's another. I think that's a session in itself. Wouldn't you agree, Krishna?
I do. I think it's a good point though, and I understand Gandhivai's point there. But I think you've touched on it as well, Chetna Ben. But it's difficult to balance that as well. Being British Indian, it's very difficult for maybe first generation British born kids, especially, to try and understand that, because I'm not a professional, so don't take my opinion. But sort of growing up in the UK and going to the Mandir, going to these places and being exposed to it. But I think questions come about as to, well, why? What's the purpose maybe? So those questions probably create friction as well. And that's where it comes back into the traditional family. So it's trying to get an understanding between different generations as well.
And I'm just thinking, as you said that, Krishna, it's making me think about, Uncle, you spoke about being, Hindu religion, culture, but it's not that clear cut, is it? Because in terms of religion, every family has a different way of practicing it. And I know how things are practiced in my in-laws is very different to my mum's side of the family, and that's within the same family. So I think I get your valid point, but I think it's difficult, it's really challenging. Like you said, Krishna, it causes friction. So if you do talk about Hindu culture, if you say to me what is Hindu culture, it might be different to what somebody else says is Hindu culture.
Yeah, I agree with you. But the important thing to highlight is the concept of Hinduism. That's very, very important. From Hinduism generates all other caste systems, whatever caste system is it. But we need to inject among our youth that we are Hindus. That is a very, very important asset. Because in certain instances, in workplaces, we are Asians. Well, that's not acceptable as such. We are British Indian Hindus, not Asians as such. So we are lumped in with other cultures which we should not be associated with. Other cultures may be very vulnerable to all sorts of instances as such. So that's what I'm just highlighting. It's important.
No, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks for your contribution.
Thank you.
I think we've got another question in the chat. So, how would you advise Indian parents with traditional values who will find it difficult to accept their gay children? have you got any thoughts on that?
So how would you, what, sorry, say that again. I'm trying to find.
So how would you advise Indian parents with traditional values who will find it difficult to accept their gay children?
I think that this is really challenging. It's like I said in the presentation, you might not get them to accept. You might have to accept that they're not going to accept it, or they're not going to get it. Because if you remember the slide about what you can and can't control, you can educate, you can talk about things, but you can't control what your parents do, and the other way around, and parents can't control what you do and what you think and feel. I don't know who's asked that question. Does that help?
It's an anonymous question, but is it a case of trying to protect yourself? Are there coping mechanisms for that?
I think if we think about it in terms of the emotions and the difficulties that it creates, it goes back to your mental well-being. How are you going to manage how that's making you feel? How are you going to manage? Because, you know, it's not something that is going to go away overnight. It's about talking to people. It's about, you know, getting information out there, having that dialogue. And it might be that you never agree to disagree, but you come to a happy medium.
Yeah, I think it's that first step.
Yeah, it's taking that first step to have those conversations to, you know, it helps if, like I says, having conversations like this and being open with it. The fact that somebody's even asked that question, I think is fantastic. And that is the first step, that we are actually recognizing that these, you know, identity issues in this sense do occur in our community. Let's recognize it first. This, you know, it's not something that happens elsewhere. It happens to all of us. We're not immune, or we're not any different. So I hope that answers your question and is helpful, Anonymous. But I think a lot of it is about accepting and trying to meet part way and trying to understand why your parents might be responding the way you do, because that might just help you feel a bit better. Again, it's that thinking about different perspectives.
Yeah. I've got a question as well. What would you say about fear in the community, and not just the Prajapati Samaj? I mean, people in this Samaj will probably think, if something's gone wrong, what are the Patels going to think? What are the Nais going to think? Like, what do we think of those kind of views? Are they still valid as such, or not really anymore?
Depends on the community, because everyone, you know, has sort of, some families are more traditional than others. So maybe some people might care what other people think and some people might not. So it might be more or less important to some people. So I think that fear you know, if we think about what fear is, it's that fear of the unknown. You know, and if we looked at the example that we've just had, you know, talking your parents not accepting that you're gay, for that parent, they're probably absolutely frightened that, you know, this is not, or scared or upset that this isn't what I planned for my child. This isn't, you know, what's going to happen, or but, you know, and they probably have 80s ideas of what being gay is about, you know, and that it could be life-threatening. So you can see where that's coming from. So, and I think fear and I do think education and knowledge is really powerful. So that talking, that you know, being open and having dialogues are so important. But also in the meantime, but along with that, looking after your mental well-being and recognizing that this is really, really stressful, and what can I do, you know, in what is in my sphere of control and what is outside of my sphere of control.
Yeah. I've just had a direct message as well, and I'm just getting the gist of the question, but for maybe the older generation, where they have gone through experiences and tough experiences of moving from East Africa or India to here, coming from a completely different family, the way that they live. It might be to do with their religious choices, or it could be something small like how they cut a certain vegetable. It becomes an issue. But how do those people who have gone through that trauma, how can we get them to realize that they have that trauma and they're still holding on to it, and that could then impact the next generations? I think I've got the gist of that question.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I can see somebody put their hand up.
Yep, we'll come back to them. Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, that's really interesting, because we can't force people to recognize that they've been traumatized. But I suppose what we can do is get them to think about how perhaps how they are interacting is affecting others. And maybe get them to, we can encourage them to think about, I wonder why you are thinking. Be really curious and think, why are you thinking like that? What is making you think that, this is bad?
Yeah. I think we had a question from N.Rao.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello. It's not like a couple of things I would like to raise. I'm from, I would say I've been to two generations. Means my dad was 96. I'm around above 70, and gone through my own experience. I want to share. But what I see, the title you gave in your subject title, it was British and Indian Identity, whereby I presume, I think I listened to your talk, and I felt this is based on only cultural and religious values, or rather than looking at the
Yeah.
Can you listen to me?
Yeah.
Are you listening to me?
Hey, yeah, we can hear you.
Somebody is host. I think is muted. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, have you your study or research or your subject matter is only based on the Gujarati families, rather than you are looking at a broad aspect of the all Indians?
I've not. No, this is this isn't a traditional Gujarati family. It's an Indian. I got it from a paper that was written by somebody in India who spoke about traditional Indian families.
Right. Now, what I see,
Which
like
sort of generalizes sort of Indians in India.
Right. Okay. So
it was just to highlight a point.
India. Yeah. Now, what I say, I think our generation has moved forward in terms of, if you see, I give my own example that when I got married, it was my arranged marriage, but at that time it was not like a forced marriage. It was seeing the other families, we talk to each other, and then get to consent that okay, we can go ahead with the marriage, me and my wife. My both son got married to different community, not in my own community. And even my father accepted that, though he was above 80 at that time, and my both forward. So what I say, you focused in that, what are the issues which are not much here in UK? It may be in the India, in certain part of the certain village and certain community. Yes, still is there. The issue is there. If person get married out of the caste or out of the, for example, Mistry married to Rao or Rao married to Mistry, then it may cause problem within India. But here, what we see is more flexibility, and we have moved forward. But at the same time, my question is to you.
Sorry, yeah.
How you look at the positive values within our Indian culture, and what are the issues that our youngsters are facing within the university, in the society, and what recent trend is happening politically and religiously that is impacting our own. My grandchildren are now facing the all challenges. given the political and the religious, some development which we all aware of recently. So how you see how we can bring our positiveness in within our Indian identity and say, as the gentleman earlier said, yes, Hindu words came from British, but said it should be like saying we are all one and one as a Indian Hindus, and we should be united in the terms of to protect our identity, isn't it?
Yeah, can I just come back to the presentation, Mr. Rao? I just wanted to mention the reason like the Youth Super Deputy Association youth approached me to do this. Well, you know, I said I'd facilitate it with a focus on well-being, and some of the things that they've had discussions and have found challenging. So my reasoning behind using the traditional Indian family, I sort of did say that this is not valid now. It may not be valid, but this is where our ideologies and thinkings come from. Or like you said, you know, mixed race marriages, intercaste marriages, you know, some families accept them and some people don't, and some are more flexible than others. But I think on the other point, in terms of how it affects our younger youth, let's ask the youth themselves. You know, I'm going to pass it off over to Krishna and the Bhajavati youth folks for that one, if that's okay, Krishna.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I take on your points about the identity, and in terms of the traditional aspect, what we wanted to portray was where these ideologies came from, because it is something that we have experienced. And you're right that we've now moved on in the UK. We are a lot more flexible and we're a lot more understanding, but that's not everyone. It's still not everyone. There are still communities in the UK that sort of do still have a narrow vision, and that's their choice. It's what they're used to. It's something very difficult to change. We don't always know what's right and wrong, and again, it's difficult to change that view. But in terms of identity in Hinduism, it goes back to my point of, well, as the youth, why should we do something? Why should we go and do something like go to the mandir, for example? I'm someone that enjoys it. I go, but other people don't, and that's their choice. It's not something that you can change by saying you must go, because it doesn't enforce their identity either. It doesn't make them suddenly Hindu. It doesn't make them in touch with their roots. It's a very personal choice, and it's a very difficult choice that the youth have nowadays. But again, flexibility and being in the UK, we're given that choice. We're very lucky that we live here, and we are given that choice because of the country that we live in, and the people like yourselves who are family members who appreciate different viewpoints as well. So I'm not sure if that answers the question or not, but from a youth perspective, I think the youth is more exposed to different aspects of life now. So whether that is difficult topics like LGBT, could be mixed race marriage, it could be intercaste marriage as well. It is a lot more accepting, but we still have those challenges there, and that's where the difficulties come about when we want to raise it with our families who still have that viewpoint. So I think we are making the right moves forward, but we're probably not all 100% there yet, and that's the difficulties that we face. Hope that kind of answers the question. I know it's quite a broad topic, and it might be a part 2 presentation maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, what you are saying is what I perceive. I may be wrong. Your talk is more about more westernized liberal values, rather than looking at proudly that what our culture, our values are helping our families and to be remain united and helping each other in a way and interacting with other communities. Moving
Mr. Ram.
forward, it doesn't mean that we should be westernized moving forward.
No.
Moving forward is, for me, what I perceive. Yes, we have to see that there are now, this is whole world is dynamic. All cultural and other values are dynamic, so it can be changing. So we are adopting the things which are as changing, but it doesn't mean that our values and traditional certain aspect of our values are causing problem within the community. That's I would like to, I would differ with you, because
Okay, can I just say, Mr. Ram,
and or liberalized values are Western values are fine, good for them. For many of us, may not be good for us in terms of our family values and our traditional aspect of maintaining the interaction and the cohesion within the community, like brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, uncles, aunties, and our neighbors, or even, for example, in our Gujarati families, how we maintain that.
can I just come back to you, Mr. Ari?
Okay, I don't want to further go ahead because it's a long on and on. So I will listen to you, but my comment ends from here now. Thank you.
Yeah, but you know, I think I just wanted to clarify. This was about highlighting some of the challenges and why, and I think, you know, we might experience what we do. So, you know, I apologize if it came across as, you know, Indian families are, you know, it's a negative experience. That it wasn't. It was just to highlight how we are organized and how, you know, the costs and benefits of that. So I do apologize if anybody was offended in any way. That really wasn't my intention, but the intention was to highlight that, you know, this is how we are as an Indian family, and it works for some people and it doesn't for others, and that's okay. So pass over to you, Krishna.
No, that was really well explained. I think there's a really positive comment in the chat about our Indian families, that in terms of childcare of grandchildren, Indian families are tight-knit. We do maintain those relationships because we always
look after each other, you know. That was one of the things, you know, said part of the traditional way of life was to look at, and we still have those qualities whether we all live under the same roof now or not. I mean, I know myself, I care for my parents and my mother-in-law with my husband, you know, but we still have those values and close knits, but we just practice it very differently. We're not all living under the same roof. So, you know, and I think we have got some fantastic cultural ideologies and things like that, and you know, beliefs and values, and we're not losing those values, we are just doing things differently.
And it's about change as well. Every generation we incur change. No generation is the same. So I think we're coming up to past. If anyone has any other questions, please unmute or add them into the chat.
Yes. Krishna, can I just comment on what you said before?
Yeah.
I know that places of worship, religion is not everybody's cup of tea, and not all youngsters go there. But the point I'm driving at, Krishna, is that if you do not create that sense of belongingness to our community, they are not going to go to the temple or community center. Because at our Bhartiya in Ashton, we built 2 or 3 million pound of building or 20 years ago. So for whom? For youth, so they can utilize for their activities, social functions, if you do. But it is really serious to know, the audience present here, that if you don't do that, then we have to sell it. I don't know whether you know it or not, but Shakti Mandir in Leicester is for sale, 1.5 million.
And I think, well, you know, if we can Kanti uncle, you know, I'm married in Ashton.
Oh, are you? Oh, I didn't
I
know.
go to the married to Sussy Mistry.
Sashi.
So you know, I you know, Ashton Monday has been a big part of my life, my married life. You know, and I know a lot of people and a lot of my in-laws that frequent the Monday, and there are a lot of traditions and that. You know, I'm you know, when we visit Ashton, I don't live there anymore. You know, we will go to functions and stuff when they are there. So I think, you know, and I know I encourage my children, so I think it is there, but I think we just have to explain it in a different way.
That's right.
You know, when I come to Ashton, you know, especially at Newari and Nawaras, you know, we will go to the Monday, we will explain, but we, you know, and I think it's that thing of we need the questions our children ask are different to when we were growing up. Well, you have to do this, rather than it's not you have to do, you have to, we are doing this because. So I'm not trying to not you know, not promote Hinduism, our culture, but how do we get people to come to Mondays? You know, how do we open it up? But, you know, for the youth today and have it in a way that, you know, it's a, you know, for me, for example, I get married, my mum's place here, pujas and things like that, and celebrations are very different. And why is it different? There's no one uniform way of doing it. So it's about explaining why that is, and if we don't understand it, how can we explain it to our children? So I think this is what this dialogue is about, is trying to get people to, you know, understand things. Sorry.
No, that was really well explained. But I think one point from my perspective, if I can, so I go to Preston Monday, Gujarat Hindu Society. I'm there nearly every week, because it gives me a sense of purpose, but that it gives me personally a sense of purpose. It doesn't mean it's going to give my next door neighbor the same feeling, but one thing from a youth perspective is seva is something that's really important. We do enjoy volunteering. So from a Monday perspective, a Monday is run by volunteers, and it's something that the youth would like to get involved with, but I think it's bridging that gap of how and what can I get involved in, because there's language barriers as well, you know, like Gujarati, it's not always spoken. We could, like, I can understand and speak it, but maybe someone else can't. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just different upbringing. But I think everyone has a different sense of purpose, but to advise, maybe having volunteering opportunities at different Mondays, because it does draw in people, and that's how you can create a community, just like how it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s when it was booming. It still can be like that as well, but it's just tapping into what the youth want, and I would go down the seva route if that helps.
It does.
I think Yogesh Bhai had his hand up.
So just to come in on that point, Krishna, you know, I wonder whether there's something about all the different Mondays getting together and sharing ideas, you know, Preston Monday, Ashton Monday, you know.
I agree.
And saying, look, this is what we do to promote youth to Mondays, what are you doing? And, you know, connecting with each other. I know there's the British Hindu Forum, but if it's about specifically about Mondays in the local area, maybe that's an idea. Sorry, was it Yogesh Bhai that had?
Yeah. Yes, I just wanted to point out that you mentioned some very nice points about Hinduism and also with regards to the mental effects and so forth and culture. But at the same time, we've had somebody also putting a point that Islam is so much strong. What we have to see is that Hinduism is a fluid and really open and very tolerant religion, and the disadvantage we have is that we are not catching our young people from the beginning, and factual information about Hinduism is not being educated to them, and this is why we have a gap.
I think this is going in a different direction, Krishna. To
Yeah, it can be
it's not
discussion, but
it's I think it's a different. This is more about religion, as opposed to cultural identity, as we were all valid points, really, really valid points. But I think that's
the cultural and religious are integrated. They are not separate.
No.
And so, I mean, I'm doing school assemblies at the moment where we are teaching little kids from 10 to 15 years that these are all different disciplines. Hinduism is pluralism and so much accepting. And how can all these different religions be friendly and live together?
I think it's a very complex question with a very complex answer that we don't have the answer to, but we can
the
take.
good thing is we're talking about it.
Yeah, no, go for it.
No, so the good thing is we are talking about it. You guys feel comfortable to raise these questions. It's fantastic, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really good as well. To sort of touch on that. Sorry, go on.
My sort of advice is that all the temples, somebody also already mentioned that they should all get together, but I think on a simpler basis, community-wise or area-wise, if they have something regular and interesting for children to go, that will be a start. We are not going to start an enforced movement like we see in Islam, where the children have to go. We don't want that. We are quite an open and educated society where we want to educate all the advantages of our culture, and it should be put through that it comes from the Indus civilization, one of the oldest religion.
Yeah.
And has so many points that are relevant even now and today.
Yep, completely agree. Yeah, really, really good points, and I'm glad that we have had the chance to discuss it. So thank you for that, Yogesh Bhai.
Thank you for this lovely discussion.
I think we've got two more hands. We've got Kushmatiwen Lad, and then we'll go to Gumlash Bhai after that, and then so Kushmatiwen, could you?
Okay, so don't look by my name. Sorry.
Sorry, I just read the title. Yeah.
No, I think the issue we face nowadays is that we live in a culture, a multicultural society. Now, our children, for instance, they go to school while they are young, say up to 8 to 5, they follow our sort of system or culture, whatever you want to call it. Once they go to school, they completely change. You see, now their behavior, their way of thinking changes. So I thought this discussion was about that, how we fit into this new society, you know. So that's my view, that we have to now discuss how we're going to adapt to this new situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've invoked a lot of discussion on this, and I think it's really good that we have.
Yeah. That's a passionate thought. It's great.
Yeah. I think because the reason why I'm saying is because when my children were young, they spoke so well Gujarati, you know. As soon as I went to school, it's gone, finished. So if you look at nowadays, children, even not children anymore, people who are 40, 45 years old, they can't speak Gujarati properly. Yeah. Well, they can't. They don't even feel shame. They can't even express themselves properly. You know, they speak with the accent, like Tamaru nam shu chai. You know, like. So this has changed. You know, that's what I'm saying. So we have changed ourselves. And if we people at that age, 40, 45, 50, speak like that, or behave or or present themselves like that, the younger generation is gone. They have lost, that's what my understanding. They have lost the culture, the way of life, So, that's my view. I don't know what anybody else can say. That was my.
Can I mention one thing on Gujarati?
Bolo.
Yeah, Dalsuba, you mentioned a very important point about Gujarati, because we at Bharti Mandal, we have been running Gujarati school for past 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And at one time, there were 100 children, 150 children. The numbers started dwindling one by one.
That's right.
And last year, there only were 2 students left. So we had to close down Gujarati school every year. We used to produce GCSE Gujarati, 6 students every year, 100% pass.
Yeah.
So where are we going wrong? We have injected them while they were young. But what has happened now? I personally think parents should, they're much more liberalized, and they do not bring their children to school. They should encourage them to bring. I know you cannot force them because of the pressures at school, but that's the only way. Otherwise, once our language is gone, our culture is gone.
That's true. I used to teach as well, Gujarati. And I saw that my own children, there was, after a certain age, influence out other society, and I don't mean English or Muslims or anybody else, anybody besides, but like our thoughts are like that. Even when I go to India, if I speak to anybody in Hindi, they get upset, insulted. They think, "Oh, mujhe aati hai Gujarati, English aata hai mujhe. I can speak English." So really speaking, not only in this country, we're having same problem in India. Because they don't want to acknowledge. They are. I think they are sort of gone the English way, the Macaulay way. That's what he wanted.
I think, very good points, and thank you for your opinions. I think it's a work in progress as well. It's a difficult one to answer. The answers aren't here, but it's good to discuss it and raise awareness of it. So yeah, I do appreciate your points.
But I wasn't looking for answers. I just made my points.
Yep.
Okay.
Taken. Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Could we go to Ganesh Bhai, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chetna and Krishna. I think there's some interesting points there raised by everybody. Our cultural identity and stuff, it has changed from 20, 30, 40 years. Tell you what, I'm sort of in my 50s, but from when I grew up to now and my kids is different and stuff. And I think we probably need another session on how we promote or keep our culture going as well, hand in hand with, what you talked about, Chetna, about talking about things and mental health and stuff, because it is important what Yogesh Bhai raised and what the other gentlemen's raised as well. Because I think we are in danger of losing that cultural identity. And with that cultural identity, the great things we have as a Indian or Hindu or Gujarati families, because there is so much good things that we bring up with our kids and stuff, and that have been passed down, that we need to carry on doing this. I think one thing we have to notice is in the 50s and 60s, India, Kenya, Uganda, we came to specific cities, Bradford, Leicester, London, Prajapati, we got 14 branches, and they're in the major cities. Apra Chokra, I know, for example, Yogesh Bhai Tamara Chokra is in Edinburgh. Other people I know throughout the country and stuff. So it's, when it was easy to bring people together in one city where you could walk down the road and you saw a mandir, that is so much difficult now. And what I find, in some respects, COVID has helped galvanize us a bit more, because after Zoom sessions, I know people from throughout the country have been listening in. this is maybe a start that way we can try and bring things together. And the more we share out with the other people elsewhere out of our major cities, then maybe we can still bring our cultural identity together. Also develop it, as Yogeshwar said, it's a very fluid religion, and take it forward. But we have to, one thing we must do is try and preserve that and go forward with it. Whether it works or not is a different matter. What I don't want is, you know, up there in 5 years' time, we haven't tried, because then we definitely know we'll lose it. But if we try as a community, whether it's Gujaratis, Hindus, or whatever, then we will try and at least try and achieve something. And I think not only this, because I'm also part of the Hindu Forum as Britain as well, and other branches. We are trying to bring things together, but it's difficult. But we will try and do that. But as you said, Chetna, talking about it will help, and Krishna trying to organize things like this and other debates. I'm sure you can get more debates out of this. You've already got the ideas. I know your brain's already going ticking ahead that we can do so.
These are like the first steps, aren't there? These are very early baby steps that we need to be taking. So all feedback's really valuable.
Yeah, but it's good that we're talking about it as well, and we're not silent about the topics, because it's complex. It's very, very complex, and it's not something that we can resolve in one generation. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, and I think there is some hope and stuff, because I know my Chokri, they're both I've got two at university, and they've attended like garbas in different cities, or I think there is an influx of Indian people coming from India as well, that is helping develop that as well. So I don't think we've totally lost everything, but you are right in that even India, the children in India are speaking English because that's their favorite language, because then they can then communicate with the rest of the world. So they're losing it, then what chance have we got?
Can I come in to this one and just follow on from what Kamlesh has said, Mistry, and I've traveled India, got friends from south of India to North India. I've got friends up in Kenya, Uganda, Indian friends too, and it's quite dynamic, the culture that's come over from East Africa. So we say different terminology from people that come over from India, and it's quite interesting, because I've got friends that are from India, from Gujarat, and I have conversation, and I'll come out with terminology, and they'll look at me and say, what does that mean? And I do the opposite to them, the terminology. What my daughter's experienced is, and she's only 7-year-old, but she's working, she studies with other children that are from other parts of India that have come over here. The parents have come over here about 10, 12 years ago, and they go back and forth. So they're quite fluent in Hindi and in the Hindu culture. And then they can also, question how Hindu we are. So they, their parents, and they've got their own set of communities, and we've got our own set of communities. And it's quite interesting of how Hinduism and people from India have come over. But not only that, I've met loads of people that are from India, but they're Christian, but the values are quite similar. And I've been to university, and I've studied in a class, and the girl in front of me, or two of the girls, are talking in Gujarati, but the they're Muslim, but they're from India. And it's trying to explain all of this to our children right now, that around the world, that the culture is different. Yes, you're Indian and you're Hindu, but you just don't always come from India. My mum and dad have lived in Africa, and then they've come over to this side, and it's trying to come back to UK. and he's trying to explain that to my children, that what the differences are. And then following on from what Gamesh was saying, is that when you go to university, you start opening up and start seeing different people. Not only that, you know, you start working with different people too from different areas, and it's Rishi Sunak's, you know, the same. You know, his identity is pretty much the same. I can relate to him, whereas a couple of my other friends from India can't relate to him at all, because his values and things are different. And he's trying to explain to him, well, he's still Hindu and etc. But as one of my friends came out with, he's not a proper Hindu. And that was hard, you know, turning around and saying, well, what journey has his grandparents, parents, he has taken to get there, to be that? And he's still a Hindu, but someone from India couldn't see that. And it was difficult. And I think out there's a lot of different cultures that are mixed together now. And that's something that we're having to now explain to our children, which is diluting what is Hinduism from different types of areas, from India, from East Africa, etc. And it's quite interesting, and it's a good topic that we've brought up here. So, and it's trying to, you know, and a lot of people nowadays, you know, saying what you know, Gandhi Kaka was saying regarding Gujarati school. Yes, you know, I used to go there when there was about 150 people, and it was nice. It was, yeah, and I got a lot of Gujarati friends. But now a lot of people with time with parents, don't forget, we are working pretty much near enough 14-hour days, 12-hour days. So what the new culture nowadays is online, adapting to teaching people or your kids online. And it's, you know, it's adapting to different ways of doing things. And I think that's something that our, you know, the older generation have just slowly now coming into, how can I say, I think with COVID's reinforced it, that, yeah, we're going to have to learn in different ways. And that's what's basically happening. And what Gamesh was saying, yes, we used to have cities where Ashton, Bradford, London, Leicester, where you could just nip down. Now everyone lives apart, and that's what's starting to happen. So, yeah, communities have changed. That's basically what's happened, I believe.
I agree. That was really well put. And yeah, it is very complex. There's a lot of different people that believe in the same religion, but maybe differently, and have different ways of living as well. And it's those differences that we have to embrace as well. We can't make everyone do a certain thing. So yeah, I completely agree.
It's explaining to my daughter that, you know, how some of her other friends that are Hindu celebrate Diwali, and it's slightly different. And it was how we celebrate it, how they celebrate it, and they celebrate on Diwali Day, but then don't celebrate New Year's, whereas we celebrate more New Year's, and then Diwali's you know, celebrate, but not as much. And it was trying to explain things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes back to the family rules, and you know, we are all Hindus, but we practice it very differently according to how we do it in our family.
Yeah.
Doesn't make anybody less or more of a Hindu, it just makes us different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
I think everybody's got his hand up.
What we have heard is quite an excellent discussion, and what we've heard is our culture, religion, and traditions being globalized. And so diversity, unity in diversity is taking place now, and factual information and knowledge of Hinduism has to come out, because from our Vedas, every aspect of life is explained, which is very relevant even now. And that needs to come out in our communities on a global way now.
Yeah. Yes, it's very interesting, this conversation. And thanks to Chetna for doing this Zoom call. Yeah, I agree with this language business. I know I used to send my children to Gujarati school when they were young, and I had to travel. I live in East London, and I had to travel quite a distance, and it was making time as well, you know. So it wasn't easy. It used to take out the whole day. But as they got older and older, the classes got shorter and shorter, and the teacher couldn't afford to do it anymore. So, you know, they they left, and obviously when they went to the school, you know, they would understand, because I try to speak as much as possible in the home. They will understand me, but they'll never reply to me in Gujarati. You know, they'll always reply in English, which fair enough. But nowadays, with social media, you know, you could, there are so many apps on there. You can learn any language you want. Whether if you type in Gujarati, learn Gujarati on YouTube, you'll find something. You know, if they wanna do that, you can do that. You know, you don't have to go, if you don't live near a mandir or a or a Gujarati school, you can learn in the comfort of your own home. The other thing is, I did my IGCSE in Sanskrit last year, and that really helped, you know. So if anyone wants to learn Sanskrit, I'll put a web link up there. I don't know if you've got it on the chat, sanskritbhakti.org. And if they want to learn Sanskrit, they do it on a Zoom call twice a week, one evening a week and a Saturday morning. And
write it down.
I thought I put it on the chat. I don't know if it's there. I don't know if you can see it.
Did we meet last year at the function, Arvind? Do you remember? Sanskrit. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I was there last year. Yeah,
that's right.
But that's right. I did my exam in 2022. Yeah, and if anybody wants to learn it, it's really good, because the guys who run it, they do it for free. It's not charged, and you don't have to do an exam. If there's a lot of people, it's open to all ages. I see young children right up to the ages of adults up to the ages of 70. You know, so I've seen people in their 40s, 50s, 60s. If you just want to learn Sanskrit for fun, it's you know, you can do that. If you want to take it to an exam level, you can do it. For the exam, you'll have to pay, but for the teaching, these two guys who teach, they do it as volunteers, and it is good, because I'll tell you, I could now read Devanagari script. I did it because I wanted to learn to read the shloks in the original. When I read the Ramayana and Gita, I wanted to learn what I wanted to get the original meaning, because when you read these books, there are so many different translations, whether you read from one Swami or another Acharya. And I thought, let me do it myself. Let me see if I can do it. I haven't managed to do it yet, but I can read the shloks. I can now read Devanagari, no issues. And also, when you as soon as they start learning Sanskrit, learning other languages become even more easier. So if they want to learn Gujarati, Hindi, Punjabi, whatever, that becomes even a lot easier, because, you know, our languages are rooted in Sanskrit anyway. So I went straight to the root, if you know. So it's a good, and once the children learn, start picking up our stories, that they will feel a bit more. I would feel that they'll feel as though they belong somewhere, to a very ancient civilization. They'll get interested, you know. And because at the moment, a lot of Hindu students, a lot of Hindu kids, they feel a bit ashamed to say they are Hindus, because if someone asks them a question, they won't be able to reply in a scientific way, in a proper way, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why people are saying, yeah, I'm Indian, and that's it. That's like a general, you know. You know, you could say I'm Indian, I'm a Sanatani Hindu, I'm a Hindu, what does it mean? At least he'll have a little bit of confidence to say what it means, where he comes from, what his roots are. You know, he may be born here, but he could say, my spiritual roots are back home 5,000 years ago. My parents came from there. This is what we believe, you know.
I think these are really good points. And if you could put your the website that you were talking about in the chat, you can share that.
Yeah, I'll put the web link because they're gonna start in the registration will start in June and the courses will start in September.
That's fantastic. If you could let us know, we can also help you share that knowledge out to the wider group. But yeah, thank you for your points.
Fine, okay.
I'm gonna have to wrap up because it is 9 p.m. and people have work tomorrow as well. But could I pass it over to Gamleshbhai for just some final words as president?
Thank you, Krishna. So first, just thank you, Badda, as you joined. It's really interesting debate. Chetna, thank you for the presentation, and Krishna for facilitating as well. I know you took a lot of time to put this together and had a lot of chats about it as well. So it's successful event. I think, to be honest, more questions have been raised. So I think if you're okay with it, it's great that this is what we wanted. We wanted to bring it out and debate a bit more. Hopefully in the future we can do some more of it. We've got a few events coming up as well, so I'd like to promote those. Our senior summer is on the 21st of May. That's in Birmingham. So I'd like any of those seniors, if you can pass that message on, that'd be great. And also for the youth as well. The Mahila Sammelan is on in 25th of June in Leicester. We particularly want young ladies to come along. So the young Mahila team who are leading this is from London, and they're specifically tailored it for sort of younger ladies as well, and talking about weddings and stuff like that. So focused around weddings and marriages and stuff. So if you can promote with your younger ladies, that would be great. We will hopefully do more sessions like this. Again, I remember you mentioned about our cultural stuff. Something we have in mind. We did last year was to explain about Shravan, explain about various other things as well. So we will try and do those as well. In September, we want to get everybody from all the branches together in their respective branches and do a charity walk and raise money for whatever charity the branch wants. So look out for that as well. And then in the winter and stuff, we'll do more sessions and stuff on Zoom, and hopefully Chetna and Krishna can do some more and stir more debate. I think it's a really big topic actually that we can talk about, British identity and so on. And there is appetite for it as well. So Jai Shri Krishna, everybody, thank you very much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you all again. It was so nice just to see new faces today as well. This is what we want. I've seen a few new faces I haven't seen before. I can't recall seeing you before, remember and stuff. So it's really nice to see new faces as well. That's it. Krishna, would you like to say anything final?
Yeah, just thank you to everyone that joined. I think we got a really good discussion going today. Lots of informative points and opinions, and I hope that we can do it again in the near future. If you do have any feedback, we'll put some contact details out on the website as well. Yeah, thank you, and Jai Shri Krishna, everybody.
Thank you. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Thank you all.
Jai Shri
Krishna.
Thank you. Jai Shri Krishna.
Very good presentation, Chetna Ben.
Thank you very much. Jai Shri Krishna.
Thank you.